there, welcome back to the JeepSolid garage. Today we're continuing with our slip yoke eliminator project. We're going to be installing the drive shaft. Got my newly ordered drive shaft. Right now I'm removing these strap bolts off the leaf springs because I had to change the angle of my pinion. I'll show you all that, what's going on here in just a second. Right now I'm going to buzz these off, hopefully. So here I'm removing the strap bolts here off the leaf springs. Get this bracket off because previously I had to remove this little wedge because we have to change the angle of our pinion. Let me show you what's going on there. And this slip yoke eliminator is going on my 94 YJ, call this one Kiwi. And there's my transfer case with my brand new slip yoke eliminator and obviously no rear drive shaft and our rear differential. But I've got my brand new drive shaft from Rough Country right here, and the slip yoke eliminator kit, I'll be sure to include a link in the description below of that from Rough Country so you can order yourself one. This is the example, the diagram of what we got going on. Here's my transfer case. That's the rear differential. So we had to measure angles. Got myself a fancy little angle finder here. You can get one of these from Amazon too. It's a magnetic angle finder, just sets on there. I'll show you how that works in just a second. But right now we had to measure angles. I'm going to cover up a couple of those numbers. So the pinion on the rear differential, it was angled up 7 degrees. The pinion on the transfer case was angled down 6 degrees. And the difference between them are the drive shaft that would have been at a 21 degree angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 7 from 21 and we get 14. And we're going to subtract 6 from 21 and we get 15. So this has a 14 degree angle where we want that pretty much straight. And this has a 15 degree angle too much. So we had to remove the existing wedges. We got some brand new 6 degree wedges, and I'll tell you how we came up with that. Of course, have your wheels chalked super well because there's no rear drive shaft. The parking brake is not working because it goes to your rear wheels. You don't want to get rolled away and crushed by this. So we had to remove the existing wedges that were on the leaf springs right there because you can't stack your wedges. So previously this wedge was between the leaf springs and the axle right there. I had to remove it and then put it all back together so I could measure my angles. Because I needed to know the angle of this pinion without those wedges in it, because those wedges, those old wedges aren't going to be in place, I had to order new ones. And I got my magnetic angle finder on here. I'm not going to reset it right now, but just to give you an idea, you want to know the angle, how much this is angled up, and mine turned out to be 6 degrees. 6 degrees from horizontal, angled up. And sorry I misspoke there. This was 7 degrees, not 6 degrees. With this wedge, how is it like that? With this wedge removed and everything just flat. So we also have to measure the length of the drive shaft. You measure from the center of where the U-joint would be. So right on the edge there. The center of that U-joint to the center of that U-joint, you get your overall length. Then you have to go to a calculator to determine what size wedge you need. So I'll link a calculator in the description below as well. Turns out that I needed to get a 6 degree wedge. So this wedge is obviously steeper than the one I took out. And like I said earlier, you can't just stack wedges. So that's why I had to take out the original wedge. So we're going to be installing this new wedge here, and my strap bolts, those U-bolts, they were just getting stripped out, so I had to order new ones of those as well. So let's get to it. I should also mention, yes, having the wheels chalked is super important because nothing's going to keep this from rolling away. We have the jack stands on the frame of the Jeep, and those jack stands up on the frame allow the axle and the wheel to droop down, taking any load off of the leaf springs here so the leaf spring can just settle down so it's not under tension. Next, we're going to put the our jack under the axle here. Now that we have those strap bolts undone, put the jack under the axle here and lift the axle up off the leaf springs so we can get that new 6 degree wedge underneath here. So one funny thing about having this slip yoke eliminator and no rear drive shaft is the last couple of weeks I've actually been driving this Jeep in 4-wheel drive, which all that did was activate the front drive shaft. So I've been driving it like it's been a front-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive vehicle. But that's one of the huge advantages of having this slip yoke eliminator is if you have a problem with the rear end of your vehicle, you can put it in front wheel drive if you remove the rear drive shaft. Oh, that came loose. There we go, got it up higher. I want to get my fingers pinched under this. My jack here slowly loses pressure. Alrighty, I got the leaf spring bolted back together with our new wedge on top with the help of a little C-clamp, kind of pinching everything together. Now on the top, the head of the bolt there, we're gonna make sure it slides into that little slot on the axle there. All right, that looks beautiful. Got our new strap bolts, those U-bolts in place. Our wedge looks great. The axle is sitting nicely down onto that wedge. Looks good. Let's do the other side. But I'm gonna be a little smarter this time, and I got a C-clamp on there already before I undo that bolt. And I gotta get the weight off get the axle off the leaf springs. Alrighty, side number 2 went super smooth. Just make sure you get everything lined up straight and it should be good to go. Now I can get the Jeep off the jack stands and the weight onto the axle again. Now with those 6-degree wedges in, it should have changed my pinion angle there. So the pinion on the rear drive shaft should be aiming right at the transfer case there. Well, almost. Let me show you here. So if this is the drive shaft and this is the pinion on our rear differential, we want that rear differential pinion pointing right at the transfer case, right? So we want the drive shaft and this yoke to be just right in line. Well, almost. We actually want this down like 2 degrees because as your wheels spin, you'll get a little bit of axle wrap. So with leaf springs, it'll kind of twist the axle a little bit. So if you have it pointing right at it, it'll twist it up above it a little bit too much. So you want to start out like 2 degrees below it. So when you get a little bit of axle wrap, then it's pointed right in line. And having the drive shaft right in line with your yoke there makes it a lot easier on these U-joints. If you have too much angle on them, it's really hard on those U-joints. Up front here, this is a double cardan joint. We have essentially 2 U-joints here. And what that does is it takes the angle up here and cuts it in half. So this will actually be a little bit better angle now. It's not 15 anymore because we raised this pinion up a little bit. So my drive shaft is not going to be at 21 anymore. That's where that calculator comes in handy. So this is going to be less than 21. But whatever angle this is right here, let's say that was 15, it's going to be 7.5, 7.5, so divided by 2. So much easier on the U-joints. Now we're going to take our drive shaft, put it in place, and put our strap bolts on, strap it all down. I'm going to put a little Loctite on these guys as well. All right, those bolts are all torqued down. It looks amazing. Final step, there is a grease fitting right here on this U-joint, and then one on this side of the drive shaft. We're gonna squirt grease in there until we start seeing it squirt out, and then we are done. Be sure to check out the other videos I have on installing the slip yoke eliminator on the transfer case, and all the products I use will be linked in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Have a good day.